The question nobody asks. Have you ever noticed how uncomfortable people become when a woman says she lives alone and she's happy? They don't ask how she feels. They ask what went wrong. They don't ask what she's building. They ask who she's waiting for. Somehow, a woman living alone is still treated like a question mark. Are you okay? Don't you get lonely? Is this temporary? It's subtle, but it's everywhere. There's this quiet assumption that a woman alone must be lacking something, as if happiness requires a witness, as if fulfillment only counts when it's shared. And if she says she's fine, really fine, people look at her like she's in denial. But here's the real question nobody asks. What if she's not waiting for anyone? What if she's not missing something? What if she is not behind in life, but ahead of it? For generations, a woman's life followed a script. Grow up. Find someone. Build a family. Center your world around connection. And for many women, that path is beautiful and deeply meaningful. But what if it's not the only path? What if living alone isn't a failure to connect, but a decision to connect differently? Because here's something we rarely talk about. Some women don't live alone because they couldn't find love. They live alone because they found themselves. They realized that waiting for life to begin was exhausting. That postponing dreams until the right relationship felt small. That shrinking to fit someone else's expectations felt heavier than solitude ever could. And slowly, quietly, something shifted. They stopped asking, "Who will choose me?" and started asking, "Who am I becoming?" That shift changes everything. Because when a woman stops organizing her life around being chosen, she begins organizing it around being aligned. Aligned with her values. Aligned with her rhythm. Aligned with what actually feels true. That kind of alignment can look unfamiliar to the outside world. It doesn't always come with wedding photos. It doesn't always come with social approval. It doesn't always look complete to others. But inside, it can feel steady, grounded, clear. And that's why this topic makes people uneasy. Because a woman who is content alone cannot be pressured the same way. She cannot be rushed the same way. She cannot be controlled by the same fears. She is not operating from panic. She is operating from choice. In this video, we're going to explore what really happens to a woman when she stops waiting and starts becoming. We'll talk about the fear, the pressure, the quiet strength that forms in solitude. And by the end, you may see this path in a completely different light. Because the truth about women who live alone isn't what society assumes, and it's far more powerful than most people are ready to admit. It's not about men. It's about wholeness. There's something important to understand here. When a woman chooses to live alone, it's not automatically a rejection of men. It's often a shift in where she looks for stability. For years, many women were taught, directly or indirectly, that safety comes from partnership. That clarity comes from someone else's guidance. That confidence grows when someone stands beside you. And again, there is nothing wrong with love. There is nothing wrong with partnership. But what happens when a woman begins to ask a different question? What if the strength I'm searching for isn't outside of me? This is where Carl Jung quietly enters the conversation. Jung believed that every woman carries an inner masculine side, not in a physical sense, but psychologically. He called it the animus. You don't need to remember the word. What matters is the idea. He suggested that inside every woman lives a voice that thinks, decides, leads, and acts. A voice that can be strong, a voice that can be clear, a voice that can stand on its own. But here's the part that often goes unnoticed. If that inner strength is never developed, a woman may unconsciously look for it in someone else. She may look for direction in a partner, for protection, for certainty. And again, that's human. But when she lives alone, something changes. She can no longer outsource her decisions. She can no longer lean on someone else's structure. She has to become her own reference point. She has to decide where to live, how to spend, when to move, when to stay, when to leave. She has to sit with doubt without immediately reaching for reassurance. And slowly, almost without noticing, she becomes steadier, not colder, not detached, just steadier. This is what Jung meant when he spoke about becoming whole. Wholeness isn't about rejecting love. It's about not depending on love to feel complete. There is a difference. When a woman depends on someone to feel secure, she may tolerate things she shouldn't. She may shrink to keep peace. She may silence herself to avoid conflict. But when she knows she can stand alone, her choices change. She doesn't stay because she's afraid of emptiness. She stays because she wants to. And if she leaves knowing she will still be okay. That inner stability is quiet. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't demand attention. But it shifts everything. Living alone often accelerates this process. Because solitude removes distractions. There's no one to blame, no one to lean on, no one to define you. You begin to hear your own thoughts more clearly. At first, that can be uncomfortable. Silence can amplify insecurity. It can bring up old fears. It can reveal how much of your identity was built around being needed. But if she stays with it, if she doesn't run from that discomfort, something remarkable happens. She starts to trust herself. Her decisions feel less reactive. Her boundaries feel firmer. Her sense of direction becomes internal, not negotiated. And this is the quiet transformation most people don't see. They assume she is alone. But she is not alone in the way they imagine. She is learning to rely on herself, not in a defensive way, not in a bitter way, in a grounded way. And when a woman learns that she can create stability within herself, she no longer seeks someone to complete her. She seeks someone to complement her. That difference changes the entire dynamic of love. And this is why living alone is not just a lifestyle choice. For many women, it becomes a turning point, not away from men, not away from connection, but toward a deeper sense of inner balance. And once that balance forms, everything else begins to shift. The quiet tension. No one talks about. There's something people rarely admit. A woman can want love and still choose to live alone. She can miss intimacy and still protect her peace. She can feel desire for partnership and still refuse to settle. And that's where the tension begins, because society prefers simple stories. If she lives alone, she must be independent and uninterested. If she wants love, she must be searching and available. But real life is rarely that clean. Many women who live alone are not rejecting connection. They are rejecting urgency. They are not saying, "I don't need anyone." They are saying, "I won't choose from fear." And that difference is quiet, but powerful. Still, the pressure is real. It shows up at family dinners, in casual comments from friends, in the way people tilt their head when they ask, "But don't you get lonely?" Sometimes it's subtle. Sometimes it's direct. "You're too picky. You'll change your mind. You just haven't met the right one yet." And even when a woman feels confident in her choice, those voices can echo inside her. Late at night, in moments of doubt, on birthdays, during holidays. There's a part of her that wonders, What if they're right? What if I wait too long? What if independence turns into isolation? This is the real conflict, not between women and men, but between fear and trust. Because choosing solitude requires trust. Trust that your timeline is valid. Trust that peace is not selfish. Trust that you are not behind. And that trust is tested again and again. Sometimes she watches friends get engaged, have children, build families, and she feels happiness for them. But she may also feel a quiet ache, not because she made the wrong choice, but because human beings are wired for connection. And here's the important part. Wanting connection does not cancel out strength. Missing intimacy does not mean weakness. Feeling doubt does not mean failure. The woman who lives alone often holds two truths at the same time. I want love, and I will not betray myself to get it. That is not coldness. That is maturity. There is also another tension: silence. When you live alone, there is no constant distraction, no one filling the room, no one buffering uncomfortable thoughts. Silence can be peaceful, but it can also be revealing. It can bring up old insecurities, old memories, old fears of being forgotten. And this is where the path becomes personal. Some women run from that silence. They fill it quickly, with noise, with attention, with temporary connections. Others stay. They sit with it. They let the discomfort move through them. And slowly, the silence stops feeling threatening. It starts feeling spacious. That shift doesn't happen overnight. It's not glamorous. It's not something people applaud, but it builds something steady inside. A woman who has faced her own silence is not easily manipulated by the fear of it. She does not enter relationships just to escape herself. She enters them because she genuinely wants to share. And this is why the conflict matters, because the choice to live alone is rarely effortless. It is layered. It is emotional. It carries both freedom and vulnerability. But when it is chosen consciously, not as a wall, but as a phase of growth, it becomes a foundation, not a hiding place. And the woman who moves through this tension without losing herself emerges different. Not hardened, not detached, just clearer. Clearer about what she will accept. Clearer about what she deserves. Clearer about who she is when no one else is in the room. And that clarity is what truly changes her life. When solitude turns into escape. There is an honest question that needs to be asked. When a woman chooses to live alone, is she moving toward herself or away from something painful? Because solitude can be powerful, but it can also become a shield. And the difference between growth and escape is subtle. Living alone does not automatically mean healing. Sometimes it means rest. Sometimes it means clarity. But sometimes it means avoidance. It's possible to say, I don't need anyone, when what you really mean is, I don't want to be hurt again. It's possible to call it independence, when it's actually protection. And there is nothing shameful about protection. If someone has experienced betrayal, disappointment, or emotional instability, of course they would become cautious. Of course they would pull back. But healing is not the same as hiding. This is where self-awareness becomes essential. Solitude is healthy when it expands your life. Isolation shrinks it. Solitude feels spacious. Isolation feels tight. In healthy solitude, you still feel connected to the world. You maintain friendships. You pursue interests. You stay open to conversation. You are alone, but not cut off. Isolation, on the other hand, often grows quietly. It starts with canceling plans, avoiding vulnerability, telling yourself that relationships are too complicated. Slowly, walls form, and walls can feel safe. But safety is not the same as freedom. Freedom includes the possibility of risk. The woman who lives alone from a place of strength knows this. She does not close her heart. She simply refuses to open it blindly. There's a difference. Avoidance says, "I will never let anyone close enough to hurt me." Strength says, "I am willing to risk connection, but I will not abandon myself." That distinction changes everything. Sometimes the fear of isolation shows up in quiet moments. A thought like, "What if I wake up one day and regret this?" Or, "What if I become too comfortable alone?" These thoughts are normal. They don't mean something is wrong. They simply mean you're human. The key is not to silence these fears. It's to examine them. Are you choosing solitude because it aligns with your growth, or because it protects you from discomfort? Growth often feels stretching. Avoidance often feels numb. Growth invites reflection. Avoidance avoids reflection. A woman who chooses solitude consciously will continue to grow. She will challenge herself. She will stay emotionally engaged with life. She will not use independence as an excuse to avoid intimacy. She may move slowly. She may be selective. But she remains open. And openness is the difference. Because the goal is not to become untouchable. The goal is to become stable. Stable enough that connection is a choice, not a necessity. When solitude is chosen from clarity, it strengthens self-trust. When it is chosen from fear, it reinforces isolation. And sometimes, the line between the two can blur. That's why honest reflection matters. Not judgment, not pressure, just awareness. Living alone is not automatically brave, and it is not automatically avoidant. It becomes one or the other based on intention. The woman who asks herself difficult questions, who checks in with her own motives, who remains willing to grow, is not escaping life. She is participating in it differently. And that difference is quiet, but powerful. Because true strength does not build walls. It builds boundaries. And boundaries still allow the door to open, when love is a choice, not a rescue. After all of this, something becomes clear. Living alone is not the end of the story. It's a chapter. And what matters most is what that chapter creates inside her. When a woman learns to sit with herself, to make decisions without constant reassurance, to calm her own fears, to build her own structure, she changes, not dramatically, not overnight, but steadily. She stops searching for someone to rescue her from loneliness, because she is no longer afraid of it. She stops looking for someone to validate her worth, because she has already faced herself in the quiet. And that shift is subtle, but powerful. It changes how she loves. Before, love may have felt urgent, a race against time, a fear of missing out, a fear of being left behind. Now, love feels different. It feels intentional. She is no longer asking, "Will you choose me?" She is asking, "Are we aligned?" She is no longer trying to fit into someone's life. She is asking whether their lives truly fit together. There is less performance, less proving, less silent compromise. Not because she became cold, but because she became clear. Clarity removes desperation. And when desperation leaves, space opens. Space for honesty. Space for slower decisions. Space for connection that isn't rushed. This is where something beautiful happens. A woman who knows she can stand alone does not cling. She does not tolerate disrespect just to avoid being alone. She does not abandon her needs to maintain harmony. She knows that if something ends, she will survive it. And that knowledge changes the entire dynamic of love. She chooses partnership from strength, not from survival. She chooses closeness, Not because she needs to fill a gap, but because she wants to share what she has built. That kind of love feels different. It's calmer. It's less dramatic. It doesn't rely on intensity to feel real. It feels steady. And steady love is often mistaken for boring in a world addicted to chaos. But steady love is sustainable. And sustainability requires inner stability. This is what solitude can give her. Not isolation, not distance from humanity, but a foundation. A woman who has learned to be at home alone carries that home with her. Into relationships, into friendships, into conversations. She is not searching for someone to complete her. She is inviting someone to walk beside her. And if that person appears, beautiful. If not, she is still whole. That's the truth many people struggle to accept, because it removes urgency. It removes panic. It removes the idea that time is running out. Instead, it replaces it with something quieter. Trust. Trust in her own timing. Trust in her own path. Trust that life is not a competition. Living alone does not guarantee happiness, and partnership does not guarantee fulfillment. But when solitude is used consciously, it often creates something deeper than both. It creates self-trust. And self-trust changes everything. Because when you trust yourself, you stop bargaining with your standards. You stop negotiating your peace. You stop chasing love as if it's oxygen. And you start experiencing love as a choice. Not a rescue, not a solution, not a status. A choice. And when love becomes a choice rather than a necessity, it finally becomes free. But this kind of self-trust rarely appears on its own. It grows when you learn how to reflect honestly, when you sit with your fears instead of running from them, when you integrate the parts of yourself you once ignored. That process doesn't have to be overwhelming. If you feel that this message speaks to something inside you, I've created a guided Jungian practice designed to support exactly this inner work. It's a gentle structure to help you build self-trust, strengthen inner stability, and move toward wholeness at your own pace. You'll find the link in the description of this video and in the pinned comment below. There's no pressure, just an invitation to go deeper. Because understanding these ideas is powerful, but practicing them is transformative. And so, the real truth about women who live alone is not that they are lonely. It's that many of them are learning something rare. They are learning that completeness is not granted by someone else. It is cultivated from within. And once that completeness is felt, whether someone stands beside her or not, she is no longer waiting. She is living.